I forgave my cheating wife, but she just cheated again, so this time I went all out and took our house and kids while she was left helpless. My wife is 41 years old and her name is Grace, not her real name. I'm 43 years old and I've been married to her for 15 years. That marriage has given us two absolutely beautiful children. Our daughter is 13 and our son is 9. Whether we've been good spouses to one another is one thing, but I know that we have been good parents to our children. I have personally always done my best to make sure that my kids are always happy. I have to tell you something that happened after the birth of our son. When he was just a few months old, my wife was going through a really tough time, and it seemed to be postpartum depression. So, I was doing absolutely everything that I could to take the load off of her. One day, she told me that she wanted to go out to just breathe, and I totally understood that she needed a complete break, at least for a day. So, I told her I had everything under control and let her take off for a day to herself. I mean, that's what a good husband would do when it was my kid too. Now, the problem came when she got back home. It was very clear that Grace was sad about something. Yes, she might have been going through a depression at that time, but she looked visibly down about something that night. And it all made sense when the children were sleeping, and she said that she wanted to talk to me about something. We both sat in the living room, and she started crying almost right away. I remember being very confused, but I assumed that the emotions had finally started to overflow. But then she spoke, and I remember the exact words she said. It's hard to forget things like this. I slept with somebody. The living room was dead quiet after she said that. Considering that we had just had a child, my wife was going through postpartum depression, and that bad news had been sprung on me late at night with no preparation, I remember being completely confused on how I was meant to react. Was I supposed to start shouting or flipping a table? I had never been an aggressive person, even in moments when it was warranted. The whole night was weird because it took me 10 minutes of us sitting there before I could break the silence. I asked her who it was. She also left a big pause before admitting it was just some random guy. I was tempted to ask exactly what they had done, but I didn't want to do that to my mental health. She volunteered more, saying she went to a bar, he hit on her, and she got carried away, and then she let the sentence end in silence. We sat there for like another 10 minutes before I told her she should get some sleep. She went upstairs, and I slept on the couch that night. That was actually the last time we actually spoke about it. I don't know why. I really can't explain why I didn't go back to the cheating after that point. I think I felt like everything was so happy with a new kid and what I felt was a model family, and maybe I made excuses for her because of her PPD. Was that the wrong thing to do? Should I have berated her like any other cheater would have been regardless of what she was going through? I don't know. And I know a lot of you will judge me for sticking with her after that, but it's one of those situations you'll never know how to handle unless you're in it. I even gave her credit for coming out with it right away. It was a sign of remorse, so I just let the whole episode slide. We never spoke about it for nearly a decade after it happened until this year. Some needed context is that I'm a busy guy. I have my own business, and after reading some books years ago, I became big on properly structuring my days for productivity. So, most of the time, except for rare cases, it's pretty easy to tell when I'll be at work, when I'll be eating lunch, when I'll be working out, and so on. It's a pretty great system for me, and ever since embarking on it a few years ago, I felt so much more productive. But I'm not here to advertise anything to you guys. The main point is that I have very predictable days, so if you're very close to me, you know exactly where I'll be and at what times, though again, except for on rare occasions. One day not too long ago, it was a Tuesday, so I was supposed to be at work from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. before hitting the gym and returning home. The day started out the way it was supposed to, and I went out by 10 a.m., and everything was going the way it always does. I think it was around 2:30 p.m. that I got a call from one of my neighbors. His name is Steve. We were pretty friendly, but he rarely called me because most of our interactions were in person. I picked up the call, and we exchanged the regular greetings and made a little of our usual small talk, but it seemed like he had something to say. So, I asked him why he called. I might be very off, I mean, maybe I'm being paranoid on your behalf, but I've noticed a black Tacoma parked in your driveway. This might be the third time I've seen it over the last 2 months, but I only just saw the driver today, and it's a man I do know. I'm not trying to say anything is going on because I like Grace as much as I like you, but I've seen this car around when you are, so I feel it's better to be safe than sorry. I'm sorry if I'm being invasive, and if you'll hate me because I'm essentially accusing your wife of some things, but I'd want you to do this for me if you saw the same so you can hate me after, okay? When he finished talking, my heart was already beating pretty fast because it just sipped my memory right back to what had happened all those years ago. My wife wasn't an angel, I knew that, but I felt like it was truly a mistake she had made back then, and Steve could be very off with the situation. It could be a plumber or some other kind of handyman. I was trying to reassure myself, but I knew I would have to show up, no matter what. I needed to have closure. So, I told my workers that I'd be taking off for a bit. They were surprised because they know all about my routine, but they didn't ask any questions, and I got in my car and headed for home. If what Steve was saying was true, I couldn't announce my presence. So, as I got to my neighborhood, I parked way down the street and decided to head to the house on foot. I got to my house in a few minutes and carefully unlocked the door and entered. The moment I stepped in, I was greeted by the scent of an unfamiliar perfume, and it was clearly masculine. I headed up the staircase, and halfway up it, I saw a loosened tie sitting on the upper landing. When I got upstairs, 2 shoes tossed in front of the door, and then I could hear it. I could hear the bed creaking from inside the room, and I could hear their sounds. They thought they were alone, So the door was wide open, but they couldn't see me from where I was. And I remember standing there and really contemplating what I was going to do when I entered the bedroom. In fact, I remember thinking that I could walk back downstairs without either of them knowing that I was there, but I just kept thinking that this was our house. This was not the first time that my wife had cheated on me. She was sleeping with someone in our bed, a bed that I would have slept on happily hours later.